Hello and welcome to another LeetCode solution video. This is problem number 60, permutation sequence. For this problem, we're given a set of numbers 1 to n that contains a total of n factorial unique permutations. By listing and labeling all of the permutations in order, we get the following sequence for n equals 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 3, 2, 2, 1, 3, 2, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Given n and k, return the k permutation sequence. For example 1, we're given n equals 3 and k equals 3. So our output would be 2, 1, 3. And this is because when we look at our permutations of 3 in order, our third permutation is 2, 1, 3. For example 2, we're given n equals 4 and k equals 9. So our output would be 2, 3, 1, 4. And for example 3, n equals 3 and k equals 1. So our output would be 1, 2, 3. Let's go through an example. For this example, our n equals 4 and our k equals 7. And for this problem, we can use factorials to determine our permutation. So for example, for permutations of n, the first n minus 1 factorial permutations start with the value of 1. We can use a pretty cool trick for this problem. We know that the first n minus 1 permutations will start with 1, and then our second n minus 1 permutations start with 2, and so on until we reach n. So for the example of 3, our first 3 minus 1 permutations, which is 2, are starting with 1. Then our second 2 permutations start with 2, and our last 2 permutations start with 3 until we reach n. In this case, n would be 3 for these. So we can use this fact to determine our k permutation. For n equals 4, the first thing we're going to do in our solution is define our numbers array, which will contain all of our values from 1 to n plus 1. And we'll also define a permutations string, which will start as empty. And this is what we will use to build our k permutation. And we'll also want to decrement our k by 1 so that we can use it as an index for our numbers array. And we'll be using 0 in that case, so we need to decrement it by 1. So we'll be using our numbers array to pull the value at certain indexes into our permutation based off of k divided by our n factorial. And the value that equals will be our index, and the remainder will set our k equal to. So first we'll decrement n by 1. Then we'll determine our index and k values. And we'll be using the div mod to divide k by our n factorial and pull the value into index and our remainder into k. So in this first case, it will be 6 divided by 3 factorial, which is 6. So our index will be 1 and our remainder will be 0, so k will equal 0. And now that we have our index value, we will plug it into our numbers array and take the value at that index and add it to our permutation. So our index of 1 is pointing at the value 2, so we'll add 2 to our permutation string. And then once we've added this value to our permutation, we want to remove it from our numbers array. And we'll continue to do this while our n is greater than 0. So we'll do all those steps again. So first thing we'll do is decrement our n by 1, so now it equals 2. Then we'll get our index and k values by using div mod. K equals 0, n factorial would be 2 times 1, which is 2. So 0 divided by 2 would be 0, remainder 0. So index will now be 0, and k will still be 0. So now we'll determine the value we're going to add to our permutation. With our index of 0, we're now pointing at 1. So we'll take 1, add it to our permutation, and we'll remove 1 from our numbers array. And we'll do our checks again. N minus 1 is now equal to 1. So we'll do 0 divided by 1 factorial, which equals 0, remainder 0 again. So we'll add our value at our 0 index to our permutation. So we'll add 3 to our permutation. So now our permutation is 2, 1, 3, and we'll remove 3 from our numbers array. Now our n equals 0, so we'll do this check one more time. So 0 divided by 0 factorial is 0, so we'll add our 0 index again to our permutation, so we add 4 and remove it from our numbers array. So now we'll just output our permutation, which is 2, 1, 3, 4. Let's jump into the code. The first thing we'll want to do is define our numbers array, and this will be values 1 to n plus 1. Next we'll define our permutation string, and we'll start it off as being empty. And now we'll decrement our k value by 1. Now we'll loop while n is greater than 0. And in this loop, the first thing we'll want to do is decrement our n value by 1. Then we'll determine our index and k values by using div mod of k and factorial of n. Then we'll add the value in our numbers array, add our index value to our permutation. And finally, we'll remove the number that we just used from our numbers array. And that's it for our looping, so now we can just return our permutation value. Had two small syntax errors. First is permutations was spelled wrong in its declaration, so just remove that. And second is when we create our numbers array, we need to define it as a list so that we can easily use the remove function. That's everything, so let's run it again. All test case passed, so let's submit. Our solution was accepted, so that's it for this problem. If you like this video and want to see more content like it, make sure to check out my channel. Thanks for watching.